Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today I'm going to be reviewing Games Wizards Play by Diane Duane. This is the 10th book in her Young Wizards series, and if you don't know anything about this series, I recommend you stop watching this and you go watch my overview of the first 9 books, because that video doesn't have any spoilers. It introduces the story and the characters and all of that. If you have read those books, and you just want to know what I think about the latest installment because you're also a fan, continue watching. I can't promise that this video won't have spoilers for previous books in the series. I don't think I'm gonna have anything spoilery to say about the book itself, but I'll have to judge for myself when I edit this video and see what I actually said. Because I already have a 16-minute video that introduces everything for this series, I'm not gonna repeat myself here, I'm gonna jump straight into it. This book begins immediately with Nita and Kit being invited to mentor other young wizards in the Invitational. The Invitational is held every 11 years and it's when wizards, I gather this time wizards on Earth only, get together to have the best and the brightest young wizards display their talents and show off their hot new spells. One of the things that I immediately loved about this book is it tackles head-on the status that Nita and Kit and also Diane have in the wizardly world. They've spent 9 books doing amazing things at young ages, and at this point they are very well known in the wizardly community. People are coming up to them and asking them for autographs. One of them has a spell named after her already, which is pretty much the ultimate recognition that a wizard will get. Another thing that I adored about this book from the get-go was that it breaks away from the typical framework that earlier books in the series had. It's something that I recognized when I reread the first 9 books so quickly, is that many of them follow the same structure of a large-scale errantry where they're sent off by the powers that be to directly confront the lone power. And everything just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and by the time you got to things like A Wizard of Mars, or Wizards at War, it was like, how much bigger can you realistically get? Because at this point you're bringing together all of the wizards who exist and having them do something. You can't get any bigger than every wizard in the universe fighting a single thing at the same time. And I'm so grateful that in this one, there are a lot of really awesome spells, but it is scaled back to the more ordinary, everyday level. It's very refreshing that our main characters are not the ones who are doing the center stage magic. They're not the ones building all the spells and competing. They are the mentors. They are still 16 or 17 years old, but they are behaving in a more adult, responsible role, and they are really taking an interest in the next generation's lives and helping them with personal problems as well as with their wizardry. The story is actually more complex than Nita and Kit and Diane mentoring people at a competition. They are assigned 2 students, 2 young wizards who are very brilliant but also very difficult for different reasons, and it's not just helping them with their projects like you would for a science fair, it's them having to learn about their mentees' lives, their cultures, their families, the type of wizardly background that they come from, and help them overcome things in their life. So for example, Nita and Kit are assigned Pen Xiaofeng. He is obnoxious and flamboyant and not just a little bit sexist, and they are really struggling with his attitude, how arrogant he seems, how much he seems to disregard them, and how knowledgeable they are, and how he especially completely disregards Nita. So this is really like a whole point of the story is Nita directly confronting a sexist attitude from a peer and how she deals with that, and how Kit also has to deal with it while he is dating Nita, but knowing that he can't be the white knight all the time. He has to let her stand up for herself because it's not right for him to constantly be stepping in and trying to defend her. He knows she can defend herself. But a really, really great thing that Duane does in the story is she doesn't have her characters just get mad at other characters because they're being dicks or just a complete sexist douchebag. She has them ask the question, Is it him? Is it Penn being that way? Or is it some sort of cultural heritage? This is the same thing that happens with Diane and her mentee. She is mentoring a much younger girl named Mernaz. She is an Iranian living with her family in Mumbai. Mernaz has some deep insecurities about her ability to perform magic well and to succeed ultimately. She goes into the invitational expecting that she absolutely will fail because everybody in her life tells her she will fail, almost to the point that if she were to succeed, she would disappoint people. She has such deep insecurities because of her family's toxic behavior to her, how sheltered she's been her entire life, and some pretty big trauma that happened to her when her family lived in Iran. Diane directly comes up against these problems that Mernaz has and has to, at one point, take a step back and ask herself, is what's going on because of cultural differences, because Mernaz is not an American like Diane is, or is there something else going on that Diane cannot already understand? I just really enjoyed the diversity of topics that Duane addresses in this story. Most of it felt very natural rather than forced. I had a little bit of issues with the whole sexuality thing at the end of it though. She talks about teenage dating problems in a very realistic way with how Nita and Kit face problems at school because of their unconventional friendship over the years. She talks about sexism, of course, with Nita and her difficulties with Penn. Duane also addresses the fact that there are a huge variety of human cultures that wizards can come from, so not every human wizard is the same. You bring a whole bunch of human wizards together and they all come from different wizardly traditions. They all come from different human cultures, and so they all behave and approach wizardry in a very different way. And I think that's something that wasn't made very clear in previous books, but now the world is really opening up and showing the diversity. This story also seems to finally address the personality differences that Nita and Kit have, as well as Diane's continuing search for Roshan, who is another alien wizard who disappeared, and Diane's been trying to find him. So about Nita and Kit. It's been shown previously in books that Kit can be very impulsive. He sometimes lets his emotions and temper and curiosity get away with him, and he has been not exactly censured on previous points, but he has had some people come down pretty hard on him for some mistakes he's made, and that continues here. And it's more obviously contrasted with Nita's behavior. She is more widespread in her wizardly interests, but she is very dependable and responsible, and she certainly has proven in previous stories, as well as in this one, that she keeps her head in difficult situations more than Kit does. And there are conversations that both Kit and Nita have with much more senior wizards that highlight this, and I really like seeing where that conversation is going. With Diane and her search for Roshan, I am so glad that that story is concluded in this book. I knew I was going to be horribly disappointed if it was dragged out again, because I think at this point she's been searching for him for 2.5 books, and it finally is resolved. Thank goodness. I also really liked how the resolution to that storyline was tied up with the end of the main plotline in this book. It really worked. It made a lot of sense to me, and I have no idea how much Duane planned that out in advance, but I had to imagine she did, or else she really took what she had laid out before and just made it all work together. There are a whole bunch of other little things that I really enjoyed about this, but I'm going to mention the one thing that I didn't like so much. I've mentioned that there's a lot of diversity in this book, and one of the things that is addressed is finally non-heterosexual characters. A secondary character who's appeared in some of the books is canonically made gay, and there's another character who I think is introduced at the beginning of this book, because I didn't recognize her from other places. She is now canonically asexual. Now, the guy who is gay, that just came out pretty funnily, and the way that Nita reacts to it and the way that he responds to her, I thought was kind of a realistic thing, and I enjoyed that. But for some reason, the tacking on of Lyssa and the conversation she has with Nita felt incredibly forced. That was going beyond the line of just being diverse and finally opening up the world. It's like Duane wanted just one more non-hetero character, non-straight character, and it didn't work because there was no point at all for that conversation to happen. So I was a little bit disappointed about that. I fear that this video is devolving into me just squeeing and being like really weird now, so I'm gonna stop. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I was really impressed. I was feeling like some of the 2 books that came before this were getting a little bit bloated, a little bit off course, though still enjoyable, and I'm very glad that some long-running things were finally just drawn together and capped off in this book. Certainly there is room for more books, and I hope there are more books, but if you've been a long-time reader and you really wanted some resolution to the long-running things, read this book. It will probably make you very happy.